Are you guys ready, Akaku?
So Vernon's on his way.
Yeah.
Who else is missing?
Starting the CPAC meeting, South Maui Community Plan, Community Advisory Committee meeting starting at 5:30 p.m. Can we start with a roll call?
Thank you, Chair. Chair Rob Weltman. Vice Chair Daniel Kanahele. Everett Dowling. Okay. Lehuanani Huddleston Hapoka. Okay. Vernon Kalanikau is on his way. Randall Leach is not present yet. Mike Moran. There you go. Cody Nemeth. Okay, Cody. Gary Passon. Yep, he's here. Kyoki Feltzer and Brian Ward. And excused absent are Tova Callender and Jennifer Sullivan. Thank you.
Thank you. Avelina mai e na lalo ke komike o lalo o kaya ulo no ka papa o lalo no Maui hema. Avelina mai no e ka po e o ke ena o lalo o ke kalana o Maui a me ka lahu lahu o Maui ne. E ho ama ho ana ko ko I ke ia ahiahi I na pala aina no Maui hema a me ka papa inua wahi pana. So our topics tonight are a review of all the adopted maps and the land use designations that inform them. The sub-area descriptions, that is sections 3.1 to 3.5, the new policies requested by the CPAC, the list of historical and scenic sites, and a review of the ranking of the actions in the plan. To propose a change to a decision we have made, a member makes a motion to amend something previously adopted, as in section 12 of Robert's Rules. It needs a second to start discussion. An example of a motion to amend is, I move to amend the land use designation of the Kukui Mall property from small town center to agricultural. Since this is a recessed meeting, there will be no public testimony on the first item. Testimony on the other four items can be given just before the particular topic. If you are testifying remotely, please do not turn off your speaker. Randall is going to read the vision statement. And we don't have a backup. What do we do? What do we do?
Ask for a
Volunteer. Do we have a volunteer to step in for Randall? Read the vision statement. Okay, I volunteer Daniel.
Sorry, I should have it memorized, but my brain is losing capacity. I have it on my phone. I'll look it up. If someone finds it, oh, thank you. It's right there on the big screen. Oh, perfect. Okay, South Maui's vision. South Maui's beaches, coastal waters, and wetlands are restored and thriving with affordable housing close. Click here to start sharing the screen. Oh. Where was I? With affordable housing close to good jobs and a variety of transportation options, including safe walking and biking paths lined with trees. The region's businesses, parks, and neighborhoods are connected, maintaining the small town lifestyle. Cultural resources are protected and celebrated, enhancing South Maui's sense of place.
Thank you, and we'll delegate the next one to Randall next meeting. And I just want to remind people that last meeting Daniel asked to get the pillows back, so bring them. If you haven't, you can probably hand it off today if you want to. Otherwise, bring it next time.
Up to you. Today, after the meeting, or next time is fine.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, we will start the meeting since we have no testimony before this first item. Land use designations and maps. And we're going to do this in order, starting with sub-area 1. So is there anyone who wants to make any change to sub-area 1? Okay, moving on to sub-area 2. North KA. Mike.
Mahalo, Chair. I would like to make a motion to change the designation of the Pialani Promenade, also known as the Mega Mall, lands back to the residential as was approved on May 17th, 2023. And I can open discussion if we have a second for that motion.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Second by Gary. Okay, discussion.
Okay. A couple of things I wanted to bring up that were mentioned when we changed it to change it back to the what some of us call friendly development category. And I guess I'll preface that by saying that as we show in our plan, and it's on page 5, is the plan hierarchy. And as most of us know, it starts with the state of Hawaii before it goes to the Maui County Charter, the county plans, policy plan, island plan, South Maui Community Plan, and then implementation via zoning. So it all starts with the state. And when these lands are still under the jurisdiction of the State Land Use Commission, because back in 1994, that's when the request was made to the state to change their designation. And since that time, nothing has been developed on the land. It continues to be under their jurisdiction. So one of the things that I heard mentioned was that there was a new owner of those lands, and I was not aware that the land had been sold. So I contacted the Land Use Commission and asked them, has anybody taken legal action which is required by the LUC for a change of ownership? And they checked their records and they said, no, there's been no change in ownership. And I said, well, who filed the required annual report in 2022? And they looked and they said, nobody did. And I said, well, isn't that an annual requirement? And they said, yes, it is. And I said, well, what happens now? And they said, well, we'll contact the owner and find out why they haven't done this. And I said, is this the first time? They said, no. This particular owner has done this several times since they took ownership. So there's no record that there is any new owner. So who is the owner of the land? It's Seraphim Realty Advisors of Dallas, Texas, who purchased these lands somewhere around 2005. So they've had the lands all these time. They certainly know the process and procedures. So if we, when we make our decision for what category we're going to place it in, this goes to the owner, and then they can interpret what we say. They don't have to follow. You have to follow explicitly what it says, which brings me to the second issue that I believe was stated correctly by the Planning Commission, that with this current state, it's possible to have more housing on those lands than it is in residential. Possible. So I talked to some folks who have a better understanding than I, and I said, is that true? And they said, yeah, it's possible if the landowner wants to do it. It's also possible that they could do a lot less. I said, do they have to do any residential? And the interpretation I got was no, they do not. So I think we have to consider that who owns this land and what have they been trying to do for decades is put commercial in there. They had no interest in residential. So I think we have to consider that when we say, which designation do we want to give? Do we want to keep it in its current designation where an owner could put a lot of housing in, or he could put no housing in? So I think we have to consider that when we look at the our designation. And more recently, another issue was brought up that at those land use commissions, that the community wasn't asking for residential. And I can tell you, I went to the first land use commission. I had to look this up on in 2012, and I was not familiar with the land use commission, and the meeting was to be held in Ka'anapali. And I said, well, why are they holding this meeting on the west side if it's a South Maui issue? Well, they had the choice. That's probably the place. So we drove up there and attended the meeting and testified. And I testified for KCA, and I have testified for KCA at every single land use commission since that time. So going back, a change of ownership is required to be reported to the LUC as a standard condition. If it was sold, why wasn't it reported to the LUC? My conclusion is it was never sold. It's still the same landowner. And looking at the history, as far back as I could find, Seraphim Realty Advisors first had Charlie Jenks, who was a Maui resident, as their representative. We could never determine who owned the land, just that he was an owner's representative. He was there for a while. And then another entity popped up, and that was Eclipse of Irving, California. And they had the notoriety that when the community went to them, and I have a newspaper article which said they claimed to be the owners, and of course they weren't. They made the statement, which was quoted in the Maui News, that when the community came to Eclipse and said, we want to have input in this, their answer was, well, if you want to have input, community, you come up with the millions of dollars that we have. Otherwise, we're not interested. We're going to do what we want. And again, that was quoted in the Maui News. Shortly after that, they were fired because they weren't making progress. So then we saw Seraphim Realty Advisors come to the forefront, naming themselves as the owner, and they were the ones that were going to testify at the remaining LUC meetings. And the spokesman for them was a gentleman named Robert Pointner. And as far as I can tell, after they lost their last action at the LUC back in, I think, 2017, Mr. Pointer was no longer with that firm. So in September of 18, we have a new spokesman, co-partners of Irving, Texas, and with their representative, Harry Lake, who we have seen at these meetings, and he has testified. Now, I personally find Harry Lake a very likable, personable gentleman, but again, he's not the decision maker. It's Seraphim is making the decision. He can say what he thinks they want, but when it gets pinned down, Harry Lake, are you making this decision? Can we count on you? Not really, because he's just working for Seraphim Realty Partners. So are they trustworthy? Well, I would question that if they continuously have not made a required annual report to the LUC for years and years. Once a year report. They don't seem credible to me. So I would be very cautious to give them any latitude in how this land will be developed. And when I again asked about the last required annual report at the LUC. I said, so nobody made it in 2022. They said, nope, the last one was in 2021. So I said, well, what happens now? And they said, oh, we'll follow up on it. You'll see. And I did see, because on September 27th of 2023, the County of Maui filed that required report for Pialani Partners. So it seems like it was only a complaint-driven action. If we didn't ask about it and the LUC didn't go find it, it probably just would have been ignored. So it's certainly challenging to me to give any latitude to Sarafim Realty Partners with their history. And if we keep the land use designation that we have now, we're saying to them, you can do some residential, you can do all residential, or you might do none. So that's why I'm advocating that we switch back to residential, which Brother Coco had made in on May 17th of 2023 before that was changed. Mahalo.
Thank you. Cody?
So yeah, just to add to that, I remember when we spoke in front of the Land Use Commission, and we had a family there that was that had a Land Commission award for that area, and we walked the land. We wanted it to be open space, and I was just kind of thinking about that again, because when I was looking at some of these testimonies, specifically Dick Mayer's, it just really reminded me why we sat in front of the Land Use Commission that time. I remember that we talked about the growth of South Maui and how we needed to ensure that we had open space, especially in the areas that needed it, yeah. And these areas, this is where Kulaniakoi comes down, and Kulaniakoi probably has the most volume of all of our waterways. It's very, very important that when we decide what areas are to remain in open space, that there is a reason behind it. And not only that, but because we had family that spoke up, in that critical time to save this piece of Aina. A lot was said in those meetings. A lot was talked about that area being kind of like barren. I've spoken to you guys before about going to these areas and seeing what the land looks like when it's cleared, and seeing a lot of the native and endemic plants sprout back up, proving that these areas still have a lot of momona, a lot of fat, a lot of life inside of it. Now I know that I did make a motion to put it in residential, and I still agree with that. I think it's very important that our South Maui families have homes. I also feel that it's very, very important that we acknowledge these waterways and acknowledge that South Maui is growing really, really fast, and where our open space is going to be, we need them. Um, you know, when I go, the last time I was hiking out at Keoneo'io, and it's so amazing out there because there's just nothing around, and I found it really rare to be in a space like that where you can just look around and everything is so eye level and far as out as you can see, without seeing houses and buildings and things like that. I think that's very important as well too. You know, we need that. And it's kind of sad now that we have so much of development encroaching on every single piece of space. And according to what Dick Mayer was testifying to, how can we knowingly continue to expand with all these issues that we're facing with infrastructure, highways, population? I mean, we really in a crabs in a bucket, you know, trying to get out. So I just think it's really, really important that we understand that our resources, like our waterways, have their space, that we also as people need our space, our open spaces as well. And as islanders, it's very important to us. It's a very innate thing that we need. I kako'o residential, but I really, like how Mike was saying, I really want to emphasize on scaling it back to the point where there is open space where it needs to be, and there's residential where it needs to be. Mahalo.
Thank you. Gary?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to speak in support of the motion to return the 3 lots commonly called Pialani Promenade back to residential designation. I've handed out, I think all members of this committee have a copy of notes that I handed out. And I wanted to first, even before I get into them, recognize that a lot of information has come out in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Information that's been siloed here or siloed there, but I think made more available to the community. And I think that there's been a vibrant community engagement in looking at this particular community and looking at this particular property and trying to articulate how it could fit into their vision. And I compliment Cody. I think I line up very much with his thinking that the residential's good, but we want to do residential in a meaningful way that provides open space and provides housing for our people. And I think that I've tried to articulate through my conversations with many people. I'm late to this party. I understand that. I'm probably late to a lot of the stories about this and that and who said this and who said that and who didn't say this and who did say that. But I put myself in the now, right now. I say, what do I feel the community feels this property should be? And that our job as the Community Plan Advisory Committee is to try to integrate that information and try to bring that to the fore and make sure that what we recognize as the distinctions for different properties is reflective of that. So I can, and I'll go through some of these, and I'm sure that, there's some, this and that about some of these kinds of things, but to just reflect on a couple things that Mike said, but maybe from a little bit more my perspective. First is, what struck me the hardest when I went to look at this was that when I sat down and said and read the clear English language that describes the STC, it says that it's going to be commercial. It says it can do other things, and there's nothing wrong with that, and here's these things that we feel fit, but it says this is to be a commercial, small, medium commercial area. And so, absent a change in the definition, I think we can only expect a reasonable developer, a reasonable owner of the property to do what the plan says if we give it that distinction. As a testifier said last week, if you take only 20% of that 88 acres and convert that to commercial square footage, that represents over 750,000 square feet of commercial space. Do we really feel that community needs, desires, is asking for that? And I personally think not. If the 40% of that land was built out, and there's nothing that would keep them from building 40 or more percent of those properties out, you would have 1.5 million square feet of commercial space. And and that means 700 to 1,500 car parking spaces. That means asphalt as far as the eye can see, probably on those properties, to be able to cover those amount of locations. And I understand that it might not be that, but I think we have to ask, well, what are we signaling in giving this thing as a specific distinction? So the other part that bothers me about the commercial, beyond the commercial density, which I think is a challenge, is that it doesn't really support easy cultural respect, and this is a little bit to some of Cody's point. If it's residential and there's small culturally significant things, those can probably be accommodated. If you're building out commercial, I'm sure all of you appreciate this, you build long, organized buildings, long, big, wide parking lots, and it makes it very difficult to cover some of the maybe not as important cultural conditions. By making it residential, I think it gives it a much greater chance of having some of those locations isolated and made available and permitted to exist on a residential piece of property. So my feeling is going STC is counter trying to take advantage of the many, many, many cultural artifacts and locations that have been already identified, and I think will be identified when somebody really starts to work on that particular property. I think we all know, so I won't belabor the point, we all know that a big commercial area is going to create a lot of traffic in it, to it, and out of it. And I think it's going to challenge the Pialani to have that kind of traffic in and out. And I think it's also going to be counter to the North Kihei-Mauka area that we've identified. Those people coming down to the Pialani, because they all have to work their way through that commercial traffic. So we've made the life of the people that we've said, hey, we want to give residences to you, we've made their life more difficult by identifying this as a potential bottleneck for them. No guarantee, but I think it's reasonable to assume that that's going to happen. I think to Mike's point, the STC the STC provides other acceptable usages, but again, my point is without a plan, without any kind of commitment from an owner of what they're going to do, we have to assume they're going to do what we've told them to do with the STC. I guess my message to the owners and developers is somewhat this. You went through the community outrage of Mega Mall. you had, that went through a very tough process, I'm sure, for them and for the community to end up at light residential, light industrial. And I don't think that's what the community wanted. I don't think the community was saying, I want light industrial. What the community was really saying, and I think we have to be honest about it, is we don't want commercial. And the only thing that they could fight for, the only thing they felt they could win, or at least try to affect the no commercial, was to accept the light industrial. So I think we have to be real about that. And if we look at the letters that came in from KCA and others, and from all the people that have come and presented here over the weeks that I've been involved, people have said, hey, we don't want commercial. What we want is residential. So I don't feel that because it's currently light industrial, and I know that, and I respect the opinion of people who think this is not necessarily fair, but I think that that's what the community message says. So I think there's also been a statement that the community never said it wanted residential, and that the community wanted light industrial. But I think a testifier last week gave us a document that was presented in 2017 from the KCA Design Review Committee that said, here's something that we feel the community will get behind. And the developer representative took that home, and since 2017 there's been no other document provided to the community, no public meeting to the community about what they would be willing to do, what they'd like to do, what they propose to do. And they're asking us now, to trust them. And I feel like there was been plenty of opportunity for them to come and present something to us that we could accept, and that we wouldn't have to make this decision in the blind, or in the blind faith of what's going to happen. So those are I provided here 9 specific reasons for why I think that retaining this as STC is not a good fit for the Kihei or South Maui community. And now let's talk a little bit about why I think residential is a good thing for South Maui community. First, I think even in the beginning of time, these 3 Pialani Promenade lots were marked in the county documents as being residential. So it seems to me the planning department saw that as a possibility, even in the earliest of reviews of this plan. The KCA has consistently said that it supports, and wrote a letter attached to today's meeting saying that KCA has always supported residential in sub-area 2, and that they've worked hard to prevent commercial at this location. And I think Mike's discussion and notes tonight are valid and important. Maui Tomorrow, and I know there's mixed feelings about Maui Tomorrow, and I have some mixed feelings about Maui Tomorrow, but in asked the direct question, would you support residential in sub-area 2? The answer was, in their letter that they provided today, the answer is yes. So they're on record with being in support of this. Now, I'm sure the devil's in the details, so let us not think that that's a blank check for anything. But I think that it's a recognition that they've always supported housing over commercial, and that in part of their settlement, they in fact promoted affordable housing in this area and was turned down by the developer, because the developer frankly didn't want to go through a community plan amendment. This is a community plan. This is what we are voting on. This is what we're trying to help conform to the vision and needs of our community. So I think that I think we should look positively on their support of residential here. And I know that all of us have seen the many, many, many letters and talked to the many people in our community about their rejection of commercial in this particular area, and their feeling it should be residential. And I think there's also a part of our community that would just prefer this to see plain open space. But I think what's on the table tonight, what the motion is for tonight, is to return this to residential, and I support that. And then and as clarified last week, this whether we call this STC or we call this residential, it will go to the LUC. It doesn't, we should put what we want on this property. We shouldn't worry about it's going to be too much work or more work for the developer, or less work for the developer, or more money or less money for the developer. We should say what we feel these properties should be. And I think the developer should recognize, and I hope they do, that it's actually going to be easier for them to get through the LUC as residential, because that's what the community is asking for. If they bring commercial to the LUC, I think we can live through another round of the lawsuits and the community uprising and all the chaos that was created by the last one. So, in the spirit of this being the South Maui Community Plan, my request is, let's listen to the community groups. Let's listen to the community members and their vision of residential, proper residential for this particular area. Let's respect the long and the hard work that so many groups and so many people put into trying to not see this commercial in this area. And let's return these properties to the Planning Department designation of residential. So in closing, let's try to fit these properties into the vision of the community and not the community into the owner and developer's vision. Thank you.
Anyone else? Levois?
Not sure who could answer this, but if it were to be turned back to residential, how many housing units or would be put into those spaces? Does anybody have an answer?
So you could look at that diagram that was handed out last time. Is that in our packet today? Or probably not. It has. It shows the one option for how many units you could build. It is here. Yeah, that's one option for what it could have. But it's up to the developer to put what they could fit in there.
What is the number?
I haven't counted it, but this is the one that was handed out last time. Yeah. That would be if it was all residential, but of course it's likely to be partly residential and partly small-scale commercial.
I think it really depends on if it's residential, single-family residential, or multifamily. How many units? So.
The proposal that KCA submitted in 2017 has a mix of multifamily and single-family. Vernon?
Okay. So all valid concerns. From the get-go, when I engaged with this new ownership, the community, definitely for my part, was always integrity, transparency, and narrative. The reason why I get a hard time today is because a lot of misinformed information and how people use the narrative. So whatever it happens tonight, I'm going to be at peace with that. But when it comes to the Planning Commission and the Planning and the County Council, there's a lot of history that I'm going to submit to them. That most of you in here in this room that don't know. I mean, even today, hearing two people call me that no trust on developer. No trust on developer. So we're going to be stuck in that. I don't know how we're going to improve that. The other thing, so putting it back to res, and hearing what KCA, even our friend Gary and all of you, we want big Ohana in here, and this the part. This is how I like roll. We all at the table. I don't like do the Google Eye action with blue jeans, because this way we up and up, right? It's the best way, and I'm most successful this way. When you guys talk about community, it's just you guys upstairs in the Zeka place. The majority of the community don't know a lot of the stuff that you guys support. You know, our friend Albert Perez, Lucianne, Auntie Claire, everybody talk, the community. When we got involved, you look at these guys right here. When we got involved, we the ones made the change. If we now show up at the MAC, we probably have the Mega Mall today, because we came out and we gave our. But what I don't like is how you guys would use our culture. You guys would use our Kanaka. Forget what you guys like. That I never like. So that's why I unplug myself in the middle like I do in everything I do today, to keep everything honest, up and up. I'm not choosing anybody's side. I really don't like nothing on that parcel. I would rather that keep open space, because Coco shared about LCA, the Ohana. My family go back more than 11 generations, born, raised, buried in Kalepo-Lepo. What on site, and I shared this with Harry Lake and others, what is on site is those pohakus are astrological pohakus. We have that on our property right below at Kenoleo Road. So it's an alignment, yeah? But you watch here how the interveners act. After we had the LEC meeting again, where both sides had to kind of get their marbles together, you know, they got to figure this bugger out. The interveners, they don't like talk to me, but they're going to find one out of Kanaka for talk to, so they can get whatever they want, or what the community want. I'm going to tell you guys straight, the interveners, they wasn't on the same page, each and every one of them. Each and every one of them. They all had their own agendas. Harry Lake, I mean, you guys was in some of that meeting. I was in a lot of those meetings. And every time he gave me a plan, hey, make sure you check with the LCA family, and make sure you check with Casey and everybody else. No, show them to me, just me. Make sure you show everybody. The one Randy you presented, I checked with him the next day, and he confirmed with me today. That plan, he's seen that plan before, and he saw other versions to it, and at least I went check on that. Because I told brother, yeah, no play games with me. You know, after a few months, we became friends, almost like family. He's a Lake, yeah. So if you guys know Papa John Lake, Kaponoai, CC Lake, that's his Ohana. So he comes here more for them than that project. If he wanted to, he'll walk away. He don't need that project. It's his family. So it's kind of like a blessing for him when he took on this project. And to your point, I did check with him a couple weeks ago. That filing you talk about, he told me he didn't file them. I never checked if he did, but I hope he did. I hope he's doing his part and being transparent on his end, because it wouldn't be fair to me and my family that we open up ourselves to him as a Kanaka. Okay, so if we're going to put this back to res, I can be at peace with that. But here the sheddy part. So you look at that map, you see how big those buffer zones are at, right? So you're going to get less housing on that parcel. So let's say Harry got, and that's just me talking, I'm just talking, it's not me and Harry. So let's say he sell it, whatever that going to be, they're going to at least recover their losses or whatever. So it become res. So are we going to uphold to that buffers? Going to get less housing? Yeah, we don't like too much action on that property. If we had our way, we don't put nothing on that parcel. But because in light where we stay today, housing is like the top, the main priority. I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay, when we walk the land, every time we walk the land, oh, that Pohaku is historical. That should be registered. It's all over the place. So are we going to compete against that? Or are we going to bitch and complain about that? Uphold that? I don't think so, because I gonna have my say. Well, hey, wait a minute. As interveners, had all these historical features over there. You see what I'm saying? We talk from two sides of our mouth. So, you guys represent the community. Did the community know about the stipulation and order? Do they know that, you know, Fran and Albert and even Mark Hyde, they signed that bugger. They agreed to give up what they've been complaining about or oppose, and then they're okay with the 95 plan, which Harry don't like. I don't like. We don't like we stay right now, but on that document, that's kind of binding. Oh, we just sign them and then it's not really what we want. But see, I'm not into all that bureaucracy politics. I just wanted to see what is best for the INA. I had preferred that to stay open. I figure we get one local brother that we get chance. Planning department, they was okay working with this type of developer. The other one that even Kate Blystone, Hawaii Community Foundation, they like work with Harry. But I get it. We're not seeing one updated version of what you guys like see. We gotta kind of hope that brother put more res than commercial. We're not seeing that. I get it. But also looking at the document that in the agreement, the interveners wouldn't agree, the community wouldn't agree. The community wouldn't agree to go back to the 95 plan, which sucks. We don't like that plan. So with the small town center, at least at my part, Gary, my 2.0 version of homework, that had chance to do mixed use. That's just my interpretation. So for me, it wasn't about him. It wasn't about the community. KCA. It's the integrity and how we communicate this to the community. And if you guys want to say you guys represent the community, then the whole community should know about that document. Okay. And for me, the small town center, on a personal note, I don't like the small town center that stay down here by Lipoa. Too far for me to walk and ride on bike. Why not have a more north where we can stay that side? We don't need to come back this side from Kaohuna'ulu Road. We can stay that side of Kaohuna'ulu Road. So, and to cross the highway, it's not a problem. Same with the kids down here at Lipoa when they cross. The red light makes it safe for the kids to cross the road. Not so with the roundabout. So that's all I have to say. It doesn't matter at this point, but the key thing is this actions that we are sharing, it's going to end up at Planning Commission and County Council. Hey, what if brother decide for continuing litigation? They probably will. So I kind of thought that, hey, maybe the community can go work with this guy, because I can tell you guys straight, nobody wanted housing. Now, if you get records for that, you get records. See, that's his thing. But from my personal side, watching this, and I hear from Albert Guy's mouth, I hear from them. Their thing was to stretch this out so that it can go back to ag lands. And I don't know how that works. I still don't know how that works today. They were stretching this. I never liked that. Because they wanted to keep that open space or ag. They didn't even want res on that property. So that's why I knew her. Because it's not fair. But if the community wants res, I'm okay with that. But keep in mind where that can go. Maybe we're going to have one tiny home over here, one over here. Yeah, because get cultural features. That's what the intervener said. So I just keeping everything on the level, and that's it. Whatever happens tonight, that I'm okay with it. And then I tired. I wake up like 4:30, so 5:30. That's why I was late. And just just mahalo all you guys for. We got one more day. We're going to finish this. Just mahalo you guys for that. Thank you.
Are we ready to go to a vote? Brian?
So, Vernon, quick question. The 95 plan that you're referring to, is that the light industrial?
Yep.
So, a question for planning then is, if we make it residential, it's going to take X period of time for our plan to go through the process. In theory, they could do light industrial development between now and the point that the plan gets approved. And there'd be nothing that would stop that, correct?
They do already have some of their approvals for light industrial. So yes.
So we basically could be fighting a battle that is going to be lost before this plan even gets approved.
Possible, but you guys can make the recommendations you like.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that, because to me that's an important element, that we can say this is what we want, but if they're in the process of putting in their permits to start the development and we tell them no, they can't, that we're going to force them into residential, is there not a probability that it's going to end up with something we really don't want?
So no one wants light industrial. The owner is planning small town center. That's what they came here and asked for. So there's no one who wants that. Yes, if they sold the land and everyone started from scratch, it is possible. But that's just absolutely unrealistic, because there's no basis for that. That's not what anyone wants, including the owner.
Yeah.
I have Everett and then Vernon.
It seems like the votes are here to take it to residential. And if that's what happens, that's what happens. From a fairness standpoint, I think it's wrong. I think they went through the process or someone carried it through the process of state land use. It was light industrial. The owner, same owner. The owner had ownership. I agree with you, Mike. It hasn't changed. The development manager has changed several times, but it's the ownership hasn't changed. They proposed something very different than light industrial. It was a long, drawn-out affair, but there was a settlement, and the settlement was to go back to the original plan. Down at Mega Mall, go back to the original plan. Well, at this stage, at a community plan stage, there's really no detail. There's no. It's not zoning. It's not specific. How many? Is it multifamily? How many units per acre? That sort of detail. It's a very broad brush. But the truth of the matter is, residential on Maui is worth more than commercial. It's worth more than industrial. On a per foot basis, it's worth more. So I think the developer is sincere. He wants to do mixed use. It's in his, or the ownership, maybe not his, but the ownership's selfish best interest to do residential, because it's worth more. They make more. And that's why I like small town commercial, because it allows residential. It comes closer to complying with the light industrial zoning. It doesn't, they're going to have to go back and modify that, but it comes closer to conforming with the settlement agreement and the State Land Use Commission. It's unfortunate that there's not, at this point, we don't have the ability to say, okay, it's going to be small town commercial consisting of 80% residential, which I think the developer would go for. But we're forced to make a decision. Correct me if I'm wrong. We're forced to make a decision between small town commercial, which could allow both, are residential, which basically makes this guy go back to square one. And I agree with you, it's just a delay tactic. This is about open space. It's not about residential. This is about stopping development. So that's all I have to say.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and so I don't know how far in he is into infrastructure. You know, he's supposed to do infrastructure beginning of this year. So I just think, like, I mean, if the guy did something like the end of this year, like got his approval for something, and then by the time this plan, 2.5 years, I don't know, how deep he gonna be in, because that 95 plan cannot, that is like end to end, corner to corner industrial. That cannot happen. So that just, I don't know, it's just stuck, because if he gonna get approval soon, what happens then? I don't know. And whatever this ends up, I'm okay with it.
Any further discussion, or are you ready for a vote? Gary?
So first I want to give props to everybody that comes here, and everybody's opinions and everybody's experiences and knowledge. This is a community group trying to wrestle with, I think, a challenging community opportunity and a challenging community problem. And maybe there's no absolute right answer here, but I think those things which were in 1995 shouldn't be so important to us today as those things which we need now. That we're trying to create a document that talks about from here forward what the community vision is and what the community would like to see done. So I think I would welcome if hypothetically, the current owner was happy with 80% residential and 20% commercial. If you go back and look at the definition of residential, you'll see it allows a small amount of commercial. So it certainly doesn't mean when we do these plans, I believe, that there's any kind of hard number. Is it 85%? Is it 75%? So I think that I would hope, since my understanding is that this property will have to go to the LUC, whether or not we make it residential or we make it STC. And if it has to go to the LUC, then which is most likely going to get the community support to get through the LUC so the builder can build? I think it's in his best interest to build what people want. And community voices are very hard to wrangle. I totally agree with that. It's, there is a bell curve of expectations and a bell curve of knowledge and a bell curve of desires out there, and there's going to be some people happy no matter what we do. And I just hope we make the decision that in our heart of hearts we feel is the right one to do tonight. So that's all I've got to say.
Okay, I think it's time for a vote. Daniel?
Well, I appreciate everybody's manao. It doesn't matter who owns the land. It doesn't. Because this is the community plan. This is the community's vision for what they want to see happen in South Maui over the next 20 years. It doesn't matter who owns it. So our objective here is to implement the community vision. So I hope we remember that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote now. Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. And those opposed?
yeses are Daniel, Keoki, Cody, Mike, and Gary, so 5, and the noes are Everett, Lehua, Vernon, and Brian. 4 noes.
Okay, so motion fails. That's, is there any other items in sub-area 2 to discuss today?
Do you want to limit the speakers to 2 minutes?
Vernon?
There are 5 yeses and
Any other items for sub-area 2?
Does sub-area 2 include Haleakala Ranches
Yes.
property? I believe that the map that we had at one point had the cul-de-sacs, not the cul-de-sacs, roundabouts in green. I don't think that's consistent with what, I don't think it should be green. It's not open space. It's roundabouts. So I think it doesn't require action. I think it just a correction of the color of that.
The color on the map that was provided did actually match the park designation that
But-
was in the map provided. I understand that that is what the information provided. That's the reason they're green, is because it matched the designation
Okay, but I
on the
don't.
map provided.
Okay, I think the map provided was incorrect then. I don't think it should be green. It wasn't intended to be, I don't think, and we can, but I don't think it was intended to be open space. I think it was intended to be a roadway and a roundabout. So I don't think action's required. I think it's just a matter of correcting the color on the map.
I would like you guys to actually vote on that, just to confirm that that was your understanding. Because in the map, it did match the color, and I can pull it up in a second. It wasn't just that we randomly designated roundabouts.
Okay.
So normally in the community plan map, the roads and roundabouts don't have a community plan designation. We have a roundabout on Pi'ikea and Liloa, and both the road and the roundabout have no designation. I don't see why we would apply a designation here.
That's the same way with, say, the Kealani project in Central. The same thing. The roadways were residential. They weren't public, quasi-public, or open space, or. It's a housekeeping matter. It's not a changing use. It's a housekeeping matter.
But Karen's saying she wants a vote on that? Okay, so make a motion.
I move that the map for the Haleakala Ranch, the ranch's property, reflects the roadways and roundabouts in residential, not open space and park.
Actually, other roundabouts and Kihei, the other roundabout in Kihei does not have any designation at all. It's not part of the community plan designations.
This is the map it was based on. Right there, it's parks, and there's the roundabout in the park. It does match the color that's in the map we were using.
Okay, the map was incorrect. It's not the planning department's mistake, but clearly the map is incorrect because it has a park in the middle of a road.
Seconded by Brian. Discussion? Any objections? Daniel? No, I was asking, are there any objections? Are you objecting to removing the park designation from the roundabout? Only if there's objections.
I'm objecting.
Okay. Those in favor, please raise your hand. In favor of removing the park designation from the roundabouts in Kihei-Mauka.
one vote on Brian.
And those against?
Daniel. Is the rest abstaining?
Meaning?
These little circles right here. Here, I'll bring up the original map. So this is the roadway, and it looks like these are little parks. So they're designated park in the plan currently. If you would like to remove them, so those little circles would just not be designated park. They're supposed to be roundabouts. So vote yes if you want them to be roundabouts without the park designation. If you want to keep the park designation, if that was your understanding, then vote no.
Could they be a roadway? If it's park, it can't be a roadway.
And technically, I have seen parks in the middle of a circle that goes around a park. I was like, that would be kind of cool. I don't know. That's what I looked at when I saw the map.
So having a roundabout that does not have a land use designation, which is true for the other roundabouts on Maui, does not prevent them from having vegetation. They can still have a park on them. It's just that don't have a community plan designation.
I'm thinking of the Kulumalu roundabout, the Maui Lani roundabout, this roundabout. None of them are park. They're all residential or country town commercial in the case of Kulumalu, or public in the case of this one.
Okay, so let's redo the vote since it was unclear. Gary?
Actually, I'm going to support Everett's perspective on it, and it is from a slightly different perspective, and it is that when they go to lay out those communities and those roads, they may not go through those exact areas, and so we'd have a park that could adversely affect the actual layout of the roads through those areas, since we're not defining roads as I understand it in these things, but we are defining neighborhood town centers and that kind of stuff. So from that perspective, I support removing at least the 4 circles. I'm not sure the little park area was intended to fall into that same category or not. But the 4 circles that represent the roundabout is.
Okay, ready to vote again? Okay, those in voting. So the proposal is to remove the park designation from the roundabouts. If you're in favor, please raise your hand. And those against? And
Everett, Keoki, Vernon, Lehua, Brian, Cody. So that's 6.
Motion carries with you abstaining.
You are
Yes.
abstaining? Okay.
Yes. Okay. Motion carries. Anything else in sub-area 2? Daniel?
I want to make a motion to amend the Pilani Promenade Small Town Center, the Pilani Promenade Small Town Center and residential, right? It's half-half. My motion is to include a road that runs parallel to Pilani Highway on the property that provides for multimodal transportation, biking, walking, and that it will have a vegetative buffer zone. And along with that motion, I would like to add a 100-foot buffer zone around the cultural reserve up in the southeast corner. These were things that were put in when it was residential, but wasn't kept when it went from residential to short-term small town center. So I'd like to see those things put back in. That's my motion.
Second by Mike. Discussion.
I'd like to speak to the motion.
Go ahead.
So when this parcel was reclassified from ag to urban in the 1995, the Rice family, Mrs. Rice, wanted they wanted the area along the highway to be beautified, to look nice, to be vegetated. So she wanted to include that. It's part of the current decision order of the 123 lot light industrial subdivision that the owner currently can build that. So it's one of the conditions. So I'd like to see that included here, and a buffer zone around the culture preserve. So that's my my reasoning.
Everett.
Dan, just some clarification. So you're saying keep it small town commercial, but add the landscape buffer and the.
I'm not saying keep it small town center. There's already been voted to be small town center by this committee. There wasn't a majority vote to change it.
Okay.
So it's currently a small town center, but I would like to see those amendments to.
Do you have a second?
The small town
second?
center.
Good. Okay, I support that. I think it's a good thought.
Discussion. Gary.
Just a clarification, because I think I also heard that on top of the green space, that there would be, beside that, it would be some kind of multimodal access road or access. Can you describe a little more about what you were thinking was included in that?
With a road parallel to the highway, right? Whatever they're going to build.
Yeah. So there'd be
They
a
need
road.
a parallel road. It should be a place for people to safely walk and bike. You're going to build a high school, cross the bridge.
Daniel, friendly amendment. Can we say pedestrian and bicycle pathway as opposed to a parallel highway or roadway? I'm thinking of getting that. It would be advantageous for the kids to get to school. It's a different. It's something to exercise and way for the kids to get to the high school.
No, I just want to get traffic off of Peabody Highway. I see a small town center as creating a lot of traffic in that area. So I see a parallel road as maybe in some way alleviating the traffic that's going to be exiting and entering Peabody Highway. Because you realize that whatever you build there is going to be a new intersection. Right now it's going to be a lighted intersection. You have two lighted intersections in a row, like you have PEK and Lipoa. You see what happens at PEK and Lipoa? Traffic backs up. You're going to have the same thing happening with a traffic light followed by another traffic light on Ohukai. So somehow I think maybe a parallel road within this project would help relieve traffic going on to the highway. I'm just looking at a way to relieve the, and I think maybe that's what the original 123 lot condition that was put on by the LUC on this project was seeking to relieve the traffic along the highway by having a parallel road within the project. So that's my thinking.
Are we ready for a vote? Those in favor, please raise your hand. Adopted unanimously.
I want to clarify exactly what that was. It was a parallel road to Pi'ilani Highway with a 100-foot buffer on either side, with a multimodal road.
No.
No.
I can try read my notes. Move to include a road that runs parallel to Pi'ilani Highway that runs through the property with a 100-foot buffer zone around the cultural reserve in the southeast corner. And then we have this a part about adding the pedestrian and bicycle friendly.
I see it as multimodal.
Okay, multimodal road.
Yeah. And then with a vegetative barrier right between the highway and the project. So you have a 150-foot setback. We have that, I think, is one of our policies or actions. 150-foot setback on Pi'ilani Highway. And so there needs to be some sort of vegetative barrier between the road and what you're going to be seeing. So it softens it. You want to soften things that you drive down the highway.
Okay, anything else in sub-area 2? Daniel?
Okay, this is going to be interesting. I'd like to make a motion to amend Kihei Mauka to change it from what it is now, residential neighborhood center, to open space and ag. Hopefully I get a second and I'll explain my reasoning.
Second by Mike.
So I'm going to speak to this motion. And my thinking is what I'm thinking is reflected in the testimony that was sent by Dick Mayer on October 13th. If you recall, I'll just briefly read it. It's regarding creating excessive development potential without adequate infrastructure. There are too many potential housing units being allowed in the draft South Maui Community Plan. There will be great difficulty in getting adequate schools built, highways provided, water availability, wastewater treatment capacity, fire, park, police, intersections, etc. Warning CPAC members and your neighbors will have a community that will have a much lower quality of life. Please consider revising the plan to an appropriate level. CPAC members have no obligation to provide for all of the Maui Island's future growth to take place in South Maui. So he listed some projects for their potential additional housing units. I mean, it depends, right? What could be built, but his calculations are potentially 6,500 units. So, if you recall the growth framework that these maps are based on, the projected growth for the next 20 years is low around 3,000 and a high of 6,000. If it was 6,000, if that was the potential growth in the next 20 years, this number of housing would far exceed that by more, at least twice. So in other words, we're looking at a potential growth of twice as much as we need, with all the infrastructure that is needed to be built for that. This has always been my fear from the beginning of this process, that this body would go way overboard. And it has. And we really need to scale back, because our infrastructure is barely adequate to maintain what we currently have. And you want to double the size, or more than double the size of what we have in terms of potential growth. If you have 6,000 homes at three people per home, that's 18,000 people, right? The high end of the growth projection is 6,000. Building for 18,000 people, that's 3 times what we need. Where are we going to get the infrastructure from? The highways. If you look at our current infrastructure like a water balloon, or like a balloon, and you fill it up with water, and you don't improve the current infrastructure, or you don't keep pace with development, you keep adding water, that balloon's going to blow up. I don't want to be responsible for bringing this on our community. And so we have to do something to scale back this plan. And I think one big thing we can do is remove Kihei Mauka for now. Just put it on hold. Further down the road, maybe 10 years, we can relook at the plan and then add in what is needed. But we can't afford to do this. This is committee is, I think, is headed in the wrong direction. We talk about overdevelopment, but that's what you're advocating for in a horrible way. And I think we can do better than that for our community, for our quality of life. I don't want to see us stuck in traffic in Pi'ilani Highway. I really think we need to live within our means. We need to live within our infrastructural means. I know you think that by building Kihei Mauka, we're going to get the infrastructure we need. I sincerely doubt that we're going to get a bypass or a north-south collector road, Mauka Pi'ilani Highway, in the next 10 years, because there are just too many projects ahead of us. Where are we going to get the money from? We need to finish the north-south collector road. That's the key infrastructure project. We need to focus on finishing that, and then get our upcountry Pi'ilani Mauka project on the STIP. It's not on the STIP. You know, the transportation plan for the state. So where are we going to get the money? You're going to need $100 million to build a Mauka road. Where are you going to get that from when you have so many projects ahead of us, when you have projects out in Lahaina, and when you get the projects up in the bypass, Paia bypass, and the Ukumehame and Oluwalo bypass, because you're going to have to move the road in. Where are we going to get the hundreds of millions of dollars? We're not going to get it. It's not going to happen. It's a dream. May happen someday, but it's not going to happen in the next 10 years. Highly unlikely it will happen in the next 20 years. We'll be lucky if we get the north-south collector road finished in the next 10 years. So I'm urging you, I'm pleading with you now to scale back on the potential growth of the South Maui district area. And this is a very simple thing to do. We can just eliminate it, Kihei Mauka, for now, and see what things look like 10 years from now. You guys approved Pi'ilani Promenade for small town center and residential. You look at all these other projects that are in the pipeline ahead of Kihei Mauka. Right? There are R&T Park, Kamalani. There are other projects can fill the need for now, but why designate, make designations all the way to the limit of the growth boundary? Let's scale back while we have a chance to do now, while we have a chance to do so now in this committee. So that's my motion to amend the Kihei Mauka and turn it back to open space and ag land. Thank you. Mike.
Thank you, Daniel. I quite often second motions because I think it's fair to hear what one of our volunteers is proposing. And I certainly agree with the conclusion that Daniel has here. that we've seen it, you know, going back to the, I don't have to bring up, you all know the 98 plan, which said infrastructure concurrent with development, and we all know that's been violated. It meant nothing. And a point was made earlier tonight that, well, whatever we put in this doesn't mean much because everything can be changed. Well, then if that's the attitude, why don't we all volunteer and come here and try? So you do the best you can and try and speak for the community. Now, my fear is what Daniel is proposing probably is going to happen. But the sad fact is, so much of this was decided beforehand. All these high-end properties are going to be built for people to move here and have part-time homes. They're going to be built anyway. Where this new project, in theory, is going to be 80% workforce or affordable housing. So with a hope and a prayer, I think that's why we're advocating for it. If that doesn't happen, if we say no to that, we're still going to have a calamity here. We're still going to have more development. All that Pialani Highway is going to be like we see every morning on Oahu, packed with cars. We all know that South Kihei Road is going to be gone soon. And his point of we need the north-south collector road at least completed those next two sections. But that's going to be 10 years away anyway. So it's a challenge. Looking at the bottom line, yep, it's going to be a catastrophe. I see it here. Not in my lifetime and probably not in the rest of our lifetimes. But if you look at one of the first things I learned here from the Hawaiian culture was you make decisions based on how it's going to affect 7 generations. And that's what I try and do when people tell me, you old fool, you're going to be gone. What do you care? Well, because I believe in that. I believe that I'm trying to make decisions for future generations and hope that that's what others before us did. So, yeah, it's a very difficult situation. And certainly the bottom line is it's going to be bad. Regardless of if this gets changed or not, it's going to be bad. We have our infrastructure is grossly undeveloped, and we're overdeveloped with commercial with a lot of high-end homes that we don't need, but I don't see how they're going to be stopped at this point. Mahalo.
Bernard.
So, Mike, that's the plan. You know, try. You know, not only for us locals, but you know those that made their homes here, regardless what ethnic you are. So what I have hard time is with the numbers, and let me explain. First, when Kate Blystone, Pam, when they started the Alakai group, and then after the Alakai group, they created that online survey. And then Karen, maybe you might have some info on that. So the community went point finger up that area for housing. Like what I heard, what I was explained, when it was explained to me by Kate, the community in the survey wanted housing res up there on this urban growth area. Okay, so, but I still struggle with the numbers only because when you look at the high school, they don't more even 400 kids over there. So whoever can go help figure out that bugger and plan for the future for South Maui and hopefully families, they will figure out that school. I think the capacity might be 1,400. They're not going to see 800 kids many moons down the road. So they didn't screw up. Who didn't help them screw that up? The figures. So, so we gotta think about that. The South Maui is not for families. You know, we gotta figure out how they're gonna make that family, so we can have even our families that move Vegas, they ain't coming back home, even if it's called affordable. They're not coming back home. So who gonna be the new breed or families in South Maui? Probably we don't know. So I get in hard time just with the figures. Not to say it's wrong. It's just I use that high school as a big oops, because South Maui not family. It's not family. They all moved out. They all went to Lahaina and they got to come back again, temporary, and they was happy to come back. In fact, some of those families staying in South Maui. They don't want to go back. They like come back where they came from. So it's a tough one. You kind of like res, but how much res we're gonna have? At least forget the school half filled, kind of thing. So just sharing. That's all.
I think Brian and then Gary.
So, Daniel, I completely hear your point on too much development and all of that, but I guess I'm looking at this from a couple of perspectives, really based on the policies that we wrote. And the policies that we wrote refer to that you need to be close to schools, be walkable to jobs, to restaurants, things of that nature, and transit lines. And just looking at the whole master South Maui, for me, that's the most logical place to have it, because it's right by the high school. We could argue if other areas, again, looking at the whole map, you could argue other areas may not need to be residential, but to me, that makes the most sense for what we said we wanted for our policies. So that's where I kind of struggle, and I hear that we don't know what the number really is. It's a projection. We could be high, we could be low. But I'm just going back, taking the numbers out of it, of what our goal was, and it was to have walkable communities to be able to get to good jobs, which they would be able to do. It gets them directly to be able to go to the high school, which is right there. So for the policy reasons is where I kind of can't wrap my head around why we wouldn't want to make that as a recommendation.
Gary?
Thank you, Daniel. I hear you. I think maybe I'm a little bit of a Pollyanna on infrastructure, particularly as it relates to the North Kihei Mauka. And my perspective on it is that area will have to have a north-south collector road on it. It's just long and narrow, and so it's going to have a lateral road, which is what we've seen in the original drawings. And to the extent that one of the things that we put in the plan was and yes, we all know that somebody could change the plan down the road. They may not do any of this, but if we have to put what we feel is, again, in the best for the best value to the community. We put in that north-south collector road on the North Kihei Mauka side would connect all the way over to the Veterans Highway. And to me, that opens up a huge opportunity, and I hope the developer and the county takes it seriously when they allow that to start to be built, that they take that into account and really take that all the way to there, so that what happens is we have that community has an independent way to get out to Kahului without coming down to the Pialani. Without that connection to the Veterans Highway, I'm probably as concerned as you are about letting this thing get built. But I think again, we have to kind of recognize that all of these things aren't going to get built in 1 year or 2 years. I think what we have up here is 10 to 20 years of building what we're just providing is a roadmap of how we'd like to see it done. So that from that perspective, I continue to support the North Kihei-Mauka project as it is.
Daniel.
I understand wanting a north-south, some sort of road, Mauka Pi'ilani Highway. But you have to realize we haven't built a north-south collector road in the middle of this urban area in 25 years. The Kihei McKenna Community Plan is 1998. This is 2023. That's 25 years. We haven't even finished this road. How do you think we're going to build a Mauka road? And how are we going to pay for that? Where's the money going to come from? And in the meantime, where's everybody going to go when they need to get out of Kihei? They're going to go to Pi'ilani Highway. You're going to have all this traffic going on Pi'ilani Highway, and then we're going to lose sections of the north-south collector, the Kihei Road, and we're going to be stuck. I think it's a pipe dream that there's going to be Mauka north-south collector road in 20 years, because there's no money. You can't build it without money. Where are you going to get the money? The county can't build it. You're going to get it from the state. The state gets their money from the federal government. And they have all these other projects already in the STIP, way ahead of us. We're not even in the STIP. So if that's your reason for wanting to move forward with the project, it's not going to be built. Well, maybe 20 years from now we'll sit down somewhere, and if we're still around, and we'll have lunch, and we'll see that road has been built 20 years from when this plan is approved. But the fact still remains that the projected growth is 3,000 to 6,000, so that means we need to provide 2,000 units. With what we have, with the numbers that we have with Dick Mayer, there are more numbers. Those numbers are already there and then some. Okay, sure. Go ahead and build North Kihei, and then all the other projects are going to build too. They're going to move forward. Wailea 670, Kamalani, they're going to move forward. Downtown Kihei, or the Krause brothers, they're going to move forward depending on what the economy looks like. They're going to build too. So you're just opening up a floodgate, a potential build out in all these areas, depending on what the economy looks like. So I think we're stepping beyond what we're being asked to do by approving, designating lands all the way up to the growth boundary. That's the max. We're stepping over the line, and I don't support that. I think it's bad planning. I think it's really bad. It's what got us into where we are today. We're just repeating history again. We're just doing the same thing again that got us into this infrastructure deficit, and we're doing it again, and we don't have to. We need to do things differently. And so my motion is for Kihei-Mauka to be open space and ag. Hold it in reserve until we need it. When we're ready to pull the trigger. I think we're ready to pull the trigger right now. So I don't think I have anything else to say. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your patience with my motion. I appreciate you.
Everett.
I'm going to vote against the motion, and there's a big difference for Kihei-Mauka to me. When we talk about a road running east-west there, as opposed to north-south, as opposed to the north-south collector road. North-south collector road, you've got a lot of small owners. And we rely on government funding to build that road because it's a lot of small owners. It's not a master plan community. You look at the master plan communities in central Maui, Maui-Lani, Kailani, they built all of their roads. And it might not be a 4-lane highway, but in a case of a fire, 2 lanes are going the same direction. People are getting out and they're going to go to Veterans Highway. There discussions have taken place between the ranches and Department of Hawaiian Homelands about continuing that to Veterans Highway. So to me, it's very different in terms of funding. It's very different in terms of planning, and it's a much higher likelihood that this North-South Collector Road gets built, perhaps in a completed fashion before the Mackay North-South Collector Road. So I'm opposed to the motion.
Just for clarification, the section of the road which goes through the MRTP will be built by the MRTP. The section of the road which goes through Kihimauka will be built by Kihimauka. So the remaining piece is the piece from basically Kaivahina to the Veterans Highway. That's the one that would have to be built by the state, and most likely by the state. And then I would like to also say that building a bunch of housing for rich people from the mainland does not solve the problems for Maui residents. You can't say, oh, we got all these houses we're building for Wailea 670, Makana Resort. We don't need housing for people for Maui residents in Kihimauka. They're not the same. I mean, at least not in my opinion. We still need housing for people in Maui, regardless of how many people we build for the rich people coming from out of town or out of state. Are we ready for a vote? Okay, those in favor, please raise your hand. And those against?
The yeses are 4. The noes are.
I'm not voting because there's no tie.
Vernon, Gary, and Brian voted no.
And Lehua.
And Lehua, yeah. So that's 5.
Okay. Anything else in sub-area 2? Everett?
Do we have any of the same issues that we had with Kihimauka and the high-tech park in terms of roadways being parks or a separate designation other than a special purpose district?
There were two things. The MRTP did not like the park designation or the open space for drainage ways. Kihimauka also said the open space designation for drainage ways. I think both of them would like it removed so they can do something else with their drainage ways. So if you could have the discussion, that would be great, about whether or not you want the gulches in the maps or to be removed from the maps. And then MRTP is saying the entire area should be special purpose district and not include the park designation or the open space designation. Based on your discussions of the importance of drainage ways and some of the policies you had adopted earlier, and the policy in the West Maui Community Plan, which was just to leave the open space, the gulches as open space to ensure that they're maintained, that is the reason it's left this way. So this would be a good discussion for you guys to have to ensure that's what you like.
Yeah, just for clarity, on the roadways in the high-tech park, are the roadways special purpose district, or are the roadways some other designation?
The roadways specifically, there's only one roadway in there. They are all special purpose district.
Okay. Are there any, so the only thing that's not special purpose, what's that green, is that park, or is that open space, or is that special district also?
Okay, two things. Right here where it is the roadway, we would usually take that out so that it shows where the road is.
Okay.
This is park right here. This is the designation that MRTP is saying does not belong in their mapped area. They didn't have any issues with the other. It's just the park right here.
Is that a gulch or is that a park?
These are park, and then the gulches are right here. It's where the little areas. The little darker green is the open space. This lighter green is the park.
Yeah, I mean, I think the from a planning standpoint, similar to Maui Lani, similar to Kailani, similar. Those are the two. They're project districts, but from a planning standpoint, it would be better at this point, I would think, not to lock in roadways with roadway location, park locations, until they get to a more refined plan where they can identify those. So my motion would be to make it a special purpose district, and then when they go through the zoning, or when they go through the next step in the process, they're going to have to conform with the park requirements, conform with the roadway width requirements. But I think at this point, my motion is just to make it special purpose district.
Is there a second? No second. Okay. There's also a very small strip which is employment center, 0.2 acres. I don't know why. It's like.
That's just an error.
Okay.
Yeah. Doesn't it?
Okay, Daniel.
It's 7:17. I was wondering when we were going to take our break.
I want to know first if there are any more changes to sub-area 2. Okay. 10-minute break. Resuming at 7:27 p.m. Okay, moving on to sub-area 3. Do we have any proposals for changes to that sub-area 3? You had something, Brian?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to review the designation for the area above the Kihei water wastewater reclamation center or facility. Something Rory had suggested previously, that we want to expand the growth boundary to allow for expansion of that type of usage, and designating it as industrial.
Second by Everett.
Second.
Discussion. Brian?
So the rationale of that is we just recently approved some actions to create greater green waste programs as well as recycling. So if we don't give them the opportunity to have the opportunity to expand, those programs are going to fail. So in my mind, they go kind of hand in hand.
I just want to be clear. It's this. Of course, that's not working tonight. Nope. Okay, right here. Yeah.
Correct.
Is it the whole? Is it the whole parcel? That would be a huge parcel. Is it just this area right here?
Yeah. I think you had originally said it was 80 acres. I think.
I want to say it was like 5 or 10 acres. It didn't look like it was that much to me.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact acreage, but can we find that out?
But it's basically just, and the only reason is just to expand the recycling area, so that, and I think that requires some equipment that on a special use permit you can't get financing for, because it's only a 5-year permit. Whereas if it were zoned, then the recycling could be expanded, and keep the trucks, because otherwise it's going to have to go. I guess it would have to go to the landfill, which is more traffic on the roads, and it's not being recycled.
Do you know exactly where the boundaries are? Because the parcel itself is huge. So this is just part of the parcel. It's like up to and including the existing area where they're excavating.
It is not the area, it's not that second disturbed area. It's limited to the, basically, come down, bring your cursor, okay, basically it's the line, yes. Basically, you can see the undisturbed area and the, yes, that's correct.
Okay, so it's just the area that's already being used. Okay. Discussion? At this first, Keoki and then Daniel.
Thank you. So again, just to clarify, this area has already been disturbed. Yeah.
It's already being used for recycling, but it's being used under a special use permit. And special use permits they have a 5-year term. They would like to purchase some equipment that would make it more efficient, enable them to process more. But without the rezoning, they can't get the financing to buy the equipment because it's only a 5-year use.
None of that growth boundary would include any of the undisturbed areas? Yeah.
My understanding is it's currently being used. Karen, do you recall from the discussion way back when?
Let me just real quick, because my only concern with the undisturbed area, and somebody who knows a lot more than me could answer, hopefully, if there's any cultural significance as far as sites and stuff in that area. If someone knows, they can answer that question.
I don't know, but for them to do anything, they would have to do the archaeological inventory survey and the cultural work, go through SHPD for approvals.
So Daniel next.
Wouldn't it be better if the business representative for this, who's ever working this land, and whatever they're doing, come before us to tell us specifically what they're doing, how large it is exactly, rather than us speaking for someone that I don't want to speak for someone I don't represent, and give it a designation. I find it for me personally, I find it far better when someone comes in and says, this is what we'd like to do, and request a recommendation from the CPAC, rather than us speaking for them. Because I don't know how accurate anything anybody is saying is. Now, if the owner or the representative of the business came in, then I would say, you could ask questions, right? And you get definitive answers. But I think we're just speculating at this point, and I really don't like that. Thank you.
So are we just revisiting a proposal that was already presented to us and rejected? Yeah, okay, this is identical to the one that was presented to us and that we rejected earlier. This is not a new one.
Do we know the date of that?
The letter that Roy submitted was on May 22nd.
May 22nd?
Correct.
Does anyone have in their binder, does anyone binder go back to May 22nd? My third binder only goes back to
hold on,
August 30th or something.
I think it might be on the site. Hold on, let me.
So in the map that I distributed when we were discussing this on May 10th, it's area 6, and it actually is much more than if it's the same one that we discussed back then it's much more than that first disturbed area. It extends past both of those.
So Roy wrote that letter?
Yes.
Can we ask Roy, since he's here, to clarify it for us?
Any objections to making Rory a resource person? Okay, Rory, can you speak to, if it'd be good if you could just go up to the map and show us exactly what you meant.
Thank you very much, Brian, and for the ability to clarify. Yes, it was a larger area. If you go to the second page in the map, it's this area, everything above. Well, there's Kihei Compost is in there. The Hawaii Materials Recycling Facility is in there, and we're also asking for the area around it to be included too. And my feeling was one of the reasons for the rejection was people were thinking, and I know Mike was concerned about all the potential uses that you could have in an industrial zoned area. And I think what we really need to do for this area is to do something similar that we did with Kihei Mauka, and that is come up with specific policies that really limit the uses to exactly what we were talking about, rather than giving a blank check for light industrial uses. And so what I was planning on doing actually was, between now and when the Planning Commission hears this, is going and working with KCA and seeing if we can get some type of agreement to the types of uses that might be appropriate up there. And yes, it would be an expansion of the composting facility and the materials recycling facility, and doing that similar type of just repurposing of products, recycling, and having the whole area be kind of dedicated to those back of the house types of uses that I think we really need spaces like that for in Kihei. We're not looking at, the type of light industrial that you see along Dairy Road, in Kahului. We're talking about real back of the house kind of stuff. So I appreciate, Brian, you bringing it up again. I'm not sure at this point I'm not prepared to present the types of conditions that would narrow it down, but it's certainly, we're not asking for something that would give it a blanket light industrial, heavy industrial type request.
Yeah, the note I had back then was 106 acres.
It was about that, yeah. How many acres is the area below the purple line that's being used? Down here? Now go up. Oh, this? Well, how about HMR? How large is HMR? HMR is 10 acres right now. They're looking to potentially expand. They're on a special use permit. The Kihei Compost is about 12 acres. So you got about 22 acres right now in active recycling. So if we expand it, for the time being, for tonight, if HMR needs 10 more acres to expand its recycling, would that address that concern, or would you prefer to wait? It'd be nice if there was something in there that was like a placeholder that would be indicative of that this group supports some type of expansion. But admittedly, there hasn't been a lot of discussion with the community on this, and I think that's the reason. I think we do need more time with the community to address their concerns. Okay. Yeah.
Further discussion? Those in Daniel.
Yeah, I when you're going to increase the urban growth boundary that much, you have to remember the Pilani Promenade is 88 acres. We're talking more than the size of the Pilani Promenade. And even I sense from Rory that they aren't ready. This would be much better reviewed at the next level. Planning Commission, or Planning Commission can do finding of facts. They can vet it, and the County Council too. So I don't personally think we should do it without having it completely ready. And it sounds to me like it's not completely ready. You might want to add 5 acres or whatever, but yeah. I'm going to vote no for this.
Just want to point out that we can make a recommendation, but we can't actually decide to expand the urban growth boundary. Mike?
I completely understand that.
Mike?
Yeah, excuse me. I just did want to address being KCA was mentioned. We strongly supported the recycling project, and we have strongly supported the Kihei compost because things are needed here. But that was our hesitation was to just open up to anything that would fit in that category. It was not speaking negatively about the two projects that are there. My understanding is Kihei Compost is hanging on by a thread, that they're not going to be able, the present people running that business are not going to be able to stay there. The ranch is telling them, no, we like what's being done there, but we don't like the way it's being done. So we support both of those there, and if they needed reasonable expansion, we think that's very favorable for the community. It's just that hesitation about giving something very broad. So I tend to think what Daniel said, that even Aurori is saying, well, maybe we're not quite ready to go yet. Thank you.
I think we're ready for a vote. Those in favor of Brian's motion, please raise your hand. And those against? Got it?
Yeah, except did you vote? I'm not voting. Okay.
Okay, and so Gary's not voting?
Well, his hand was,
Well, negative, okay.
the motion fails.
Okay, motion fails. Anything else in sub-area 3? Sub-area 4, Wailea. Daniel.
I'd like to make a motion to amend. I don't have the TMK in front of me, but it's parcel SFS next to the what is known as a dog park, 23 acres. There you go. This parcel that's next to the county park. The 13-acre county park is parcel 23. It's currently vacant land. It is as you can see in the proposed designation is residential. I want to make a motion to move it from residential to park. That's my motion.
Mike seconds. Discussion.
I'd like to speak to the motion, Chair.
Go ahead.
So we do have a shortage of parks in so-called Wailea. The county park, which isn't completely built out, is 13 acres, and other than the golf courses, that's the only thing designated park, and then beach parks, of course. So I think there's a need for a park. Maui Meadows, we have, as of the 2020 census, there are 2,200 people that live in Maui Meadows. And as of the 2020 census in Wailea, 1,346. So that's almost 3,600 people. And there's only that one park. Of course, I'm not talking about anybody that lives on the other side of the road next to the current park, Kilohana. There are neighborhoods over there. I'm not even including the people that live in those areas. So I think there is a need for more parks now. I think SFS 23 acres would be a good addition to the 13-acre part. That's 13 plus 23. That'd be 360 acres. We don't have mathematicians in here. 23 plus 13, that's 36 acres. That could be used for park. I think it'd be a good use of that land. Anyway, that's what I'm speaking to.
Discussion. Vernon?
So Daniel, that blue corner, that's the park open today?
I'm sorry, Vernon, what was it?
Yeah, just getting reference. So
Yeah, the maybe that's the county park,
oh, okay, I get it.
and part of it is used as a dog
And then
park.
the blue is that tank, right? So if we make that all park, isn't it
The
like
yellow just below it, south of the park, the yellow area, that's the parcel. 23 acres on Kapili. The road to the right, that's Kapili, and the road above it, that's Pi'ilani Highway. So it's like directly below Maui Meadows, and it's a parcel within the Wailea area.
so where the cursor is at? That's change that to park.
Yep. And then there's a gulch at the one end of the park. That's a gulch, and there's a gulch on the top end. That's a gulch too, and that would be a park.
Brian?
So last week we approved a action to have the Kilohana Park actually expanded because currently of the 13 acres, I believe it's 3-ish is actually a park, which needs some serious help in itself. So I guess I'm a little confused on why we would be making a recommendation to expand it that much further when we haven't been able to, in the past 10 years, be able to get the park built out in 13 acres. And the reason I know that is that WCA is actually partnered with Parks and Rec to actually help facilitate it. They help come up with the design plans. Wailea actually, WCA, we actually maintain all the beach parks. So it's our funding. It's the county's not funding it. We pay for that. And we do pay, although again the park's not in the best shape. But we do actually maintain that park. So I think I would recommend that we need to, which is I thought why we were doing the action last week that passed, would be to focus on getting at least the 13 acres that is county land developed so that we did have a park. And to your point, it borderlines with Kihei, it borderlines with Maui Meadows, it borderlines with part of Wailea, so it really would bring an entire community together. So that just my thoughts.
Well, a lot of that 13 acres is in a gulch. You know, the part that they've developed as a park is flat, but the undeveloped part is a steep gulch from the park. Yeah, I guess they could develop that and develop it and have a nice green gulch in and out. I think the 23 acres would provide for a place for people to view the sunset, to walk around. There are cultural sites there. I mean, it could be used for many different purposes. I think there's a need for additional parks in Wailea. I just think we need to have them. This is the time we designate things. It's part of our policy, and it's sort of the vision we have for South Maui, to have adequate parks, and we don't have adequate parks. If you look in Wailea out to McKenna, we have beach parks, but we don't have many parks.
I think it was Brian first, then Gary.
I completely agree. We don't have a lot of parks, but if you look at the plans that are at least been proposed, that at least socialized, that with the development that, regardless if we like it or not, that is being proposed, there are parks that are going to be put in that are going to actually be across the entire community versus it being in just one specific location. So I think that assuming those plans go through and that we will be getting a lot more parks that'll be dispersed across the entire part of South Maui in Wailea. So I think focusing the energy just in one specific geographic area doesn't really meet the needs and or meet our policies that we've actually written. So I'll speak for myself. Like for me, I wouldn't be able to get to that park easily.
Gary?
So Daniel, I on this one, I have a tendency to lean toward this, and my thinking on it is simply that this is a 10 to 20 year plan, and if these areas are not isolated in the plan now, there's a chance that before we can come back in and decide that we should do this, maybe these lands are not available anymore. So from that perspective and from a growth perspective, I think it's a good thing. To Brian's point, which I think if it does happen, that other areas build out and this one, sometime in the future becomes extraneous, then it's certainly easy enough to give that land back to whatever use is most appropriate for it. So I'm for putting a placeholder here. I think it's a good thing.
Everett?
I believe Wailea 670 doesn't, Daniel, does that have a strip of about 100 acres, open space adjacent to Maui Meadows?
That's a buffer zone. That's a transition zone between rural and urban, which is what Wailea 670 is going to be. It's supposed to be an open space vegetative buffer zone, not a park.
But to me, that's a much better place for recreation, be it walking trails, as opposed to taking resort land and making it a park. I think does Maui Meadows have any parks?
No.
To me, that's adjacent to Maui Meadows. It's more appropriate to put a park there as opposed to taking resort land that we can collect probably more property taxes on that 23 acres than all of Maui Meadows. And I just don't think it's a good use of a economic resource. I agree with Brian that we should support the county expanding the existing county park by 10 acres. And then we got the 140 acres next to Maui Meadows. So I oppose the motion.
Chair,
Daniel?
there is no 140 acres next to Maui Meadows. There's a 12-plus acre buffer zone, and folks don't want to see a park in there.
Yeah. I think people feel the same way maybe on the 23 acres. They don't want to see a park there either. So, I mean, but the county does have 13 acres, which can be expanded.
My point is it's not enough. There needs to be more park. And I think it's a good placeholder for an area that's planned to be built out, lead core, for example. You can have a lot more homes there in the future if they have their plans approved. They want to build 800 to 900 residential units in that area.
Are we ready for a vote? Those in favor, please raise your hand. And those opposed? Okay, so a motion passes. Anything else in sub-area 4? Brian?
I make a motion for discussion purposes for the transit corridor to potentially change that to small town center to kind of mirror or map the balance of what we at least originally said we wanted.
Is there a second? Second by Daniel. Motion.
In the rationale that in looking at it, to me, is it just stands out like a sore thumb that it's really not a transit corridor. It's a completely squared off, boxed in area, which is the Gateway Plaza. It's limited. It's a parking lot surrounded by buildings. You can't really develop it to being a full transit oriented. So that's just the rationale, because it would seem to make more sense to kind of flow with small town center, which is kind of what it is.
Any discussion? Any objections? Okay, I find that passes. So converting that square to small town center. Anything else for? I guess this is your area, isn't it? Sub-area 4.
The last one I have is the title of the map correct? Because it's actually combining two different areas. So I talked to Karen about this. I know it's not a designation of specific locations, but Wailea is the lower portion. To the right is the 670. So I didn't make a motion yet, did I? No. I didn't make a motion. Sorry. So I'd like to make a motion to discuss the proper naming of this map. Well, I guess it's a question to planning, but I'm not allowed to ask you a question unless we have a motion, correct? It's not testimony. So, the question I have is that we're saying this map is Wailea, but the lower right-hand portion is a whole separate community that'll have a separate association. So are we misrepresenting to individuals when they look at this map that is the entirety of Wailea, which it's not? So, and Vernon, I know I chatted with you real quick on this as well. So the question I have is are we misrepresenting the name of the map? Should it be both parcels? Because the 670 parcel actually goes down into McKenna as well. So,
I believe when we were discussing this, it had to do with the Wailea Community Association, and the community plan doesn't impact the Wailea Community Association unless you decide it does. I don't think you need to change the name of the map. If you want to, maybe a different. Which Ahupua'a is it in? Paiahu.
One of those things I never get to yet. Along with Kahanohi and even Daniel. So what he was asking is, because it doesn't fall like under Wailea's jurisdiction or McKenna, so he just was trying to be culturally appropriate, like what would that project be named? So I figure, the Paiahu experts never got to that yet, so.
Daniel?
Oh, maybe I can speak to a little bit. So that basically looks like Wailea Resort, the resort area, 1,500 acres. Old A and B land became a resort. So that I think that's pretty much all of Wailea Resort. But Wailea Resort is a subsection of an Ahupua'a called Paiahu. So it is Wailea Resort. but the Ahupua'a is Pai'ahu. And the way I look at Wailea, in terms of resort, I look at it as a brand name. It's a brand name for their product. And their Wailea 670 isn't called Wailea 670 because Wailea Resort didn't like them being called Wailea 670. So they changed their name to Honua Ula Partners LLC, right? Because I guess they claimed the name Wailea, but you know, it's basically a brand name of the. It's a resort, yeah, resort area.
So we don't have a motion yet, do we?
No, because I don't know what to call it. I was asking if we needed to look at it. I'm not hung up in it anyway. If somebody's looking at the map, it would appear that whole area is Wailea. So, again, I just want to make sure that we're representing things clearly and that we don't confuse people when somebody else looks at this. If nobody else thinks it's an issue, then I let it go. I just wanted to raise it because it could be confusing. I just don't know what to call it. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's not. There are places that have Wailea as a place name, you know, Wailea Point and Wailea Village. But, you know, they call the whole resort Wailea. They took a place name within the area, and they took it and called everything Wailea Resort. So that's how they branded their product.
Okay, I suggest we move on then, unless there's a motion. Anything else in sub-area 4? Ed or Vernon?
Okay, give this a try. Make a motion that we have. Talk about this map. You know, there's two different maps. You get the county version and the developer's version. So I make a motion we discuss this one, and I'll start with that.
You can't make a motion to discuss. You have to make a motion to change something.
Okay, so that's why I said it earlier. I'm going to take a shot at this. So it's that map. You know, you have the developer's map and you have them guys' map, the planning guys. So forgive me if I make a motion that we adopt this plan, the developer's plan, and have a discussion on this. Is that appropriate?
Is it appropriate? Is there a second?
Okay.
Second by Everett.
Second.
Shoots. Okay, so me, I go do homework. I like, hey, how come we get two different maps? These guys over there said that's their map. The developers get one map that they did a survey study, and they believe they improved the county version map. I don't know. So that's why I wanted to have the discussion with that, and I like also include for resource Will Spence to have a say on this part, because I like know which map better, because I think their map might be better, but I don't know. That's why we're going to find out if I can, if it's appropriate that I have Will Spence as a reference if anybody like or no like.
Any objections? Having Will Spence as a resource. Okay.
Okay, Will. Because I like continue to know too. That's how this.
Thank you, committee members. Yes, of course, we're standing on our previous testimony. The map that was developed in-house by Honua Partners is more accurate than the map presented by the planning department. And it's not, and I see that there was testimony that the map presented, the map developed by the planning department was based on a LiDAR study, and I know LiDAR can be very accurate. The map developed by Hanu'ula Partners was done ground survey with surveyors, also using GPS. And so it's the accuracy of what's actually on the ground. What we're looking at is accuracy of what's on the map, the designations. The designations that we developed for the community plan is more accurate based on the survey data that we had, but also on what the Planning Commission approved. So it's not a slam on the Planning Department at all. It's just that the information that was developed by the company is more accurate and more reflects the designations more reflect what the Planning Commission approved. That makes sense.
Discussion, questions? Thank you.
And if I could add, Mr. Chair, in the alternative, if there could be a policy that says, whichever map ultimately this group adopts, if there could be some recognition of what the Planning Commission approved and let that be the default. And that would just go within the text of the plan.
Any further discussion? Are we ready for a vote?
So that
Renan?
so the studies the company or the landowner did is more accurate than what the planning department had for whatever.
Yes, one was done LiDAR either electronically, the other was on the ground, multiple surveys, ground surveys of this project site, archaeological sites identified by GPS, the gulches identified by GPS. I mean, it is, the property has been surveyed, I don't know how many times, 5, 6 times by licensed surveyors. Definitely the company's map is technically more accurate.
Okay, thank you.
Daniel?
Sorry, that's not accurate. Well, the proposed map, the new proposed map, has inaccuracies in it. The map that we approved was the one that was brought forth to us as being the one that the planning department approved. That was the one we approved when we voted. We voted on that map. That's one. Two is, as I look at the current planning department's map and the one that's being proposed, I know those gulches really well, especially the ones next to Maui Meadows. I've walked those gulches many, many times. And so your map, the new map, map A, is missing parts of the gulch that the planning department's map has on there. I'm very familiar with the gulches immediately adjacent to Maui Meadows, and the planning department has a section of that, and the new map that's being brought forth doesn't have that. And there are other large gulches that flow under Pi'ilani Highway. The distance that in the map that you're proposing between the two gulches, just before it goes under Pi'ilani Highway, is much further apart than it is in the planning department's map. They're not that far apart. They're much closer together. If we could put up the planning department's map, or any map.
That is the planning department's map.
Okay, where the neighborhood center is,
Which one?
And the top one, the northernmost one, that one. Can you zoom into that? Zoom closer. See how, okay, zoom out a little bit. See how the gulches come together like that, much closer together? There's two gulches that meet. One goes through the neighborhood center, and one is just above it. That's where they go under Pi'ilani Highway. That's correct. But it's not like that on map A. It looks different on map A. And then if you go up, okay, up to the boundary of Maui Meadows, right there. You see that line? That's a gulch. That does exist, but that's not on your map. That disappeared. That gulch runs north to from north excuse me, northwest to southeast. It cuts through Maui Meadows and enters Wailea 670 property. So that's correct. That's on the planning department's map. That's correct, but it's not on map A. On your map, that's missing. Then if we go down to the neighborhood center, right there, and just zoom out a little bit, see where it's right against the buffer zone. Maui Meadows is above, and that area right there is residential along Pi'ilani Highway. The yellow, that's supposed to be multifamily. Not supposed to be commercial right up against Maui Meadows. Not supposed to be. But on your map, you have neighborhood center, or is it a neighborhood center or a small town center?
I think it's small town.
It's a small town center, yeah. Not supposed to have commercial right up against Maui Meadows. It's supposed to be residential only, no commercial. So this map is more accurate. I'm just pointing out those things that are different, and I think not accurate in map A and accurate in the planning department's map. So there may be some, inaccuracies in the planning department's map. Maybe the blue area where there's supposed to be a water tank, and there's no water tank there, but it's an area proposed to have a water tank. I would agree with you there. You could make it residential, and then you can move around wherever you think the water tank should go. Since there is no water tank, that blue area to the right. Yeah, there's no water tank there, but I think it's proposed for a water tank. But I think it's fine if it's all yellow and doesn't have the blue in there, because you don't really know where you want to put the water tank, and you want a little flexibility. So I think that's fine. And maybe the other blue area there, maybe the shape is not exactly correct. And maybe you could adjust that blue area to more accurately show what you feel is correct. But as far as the gulches, I know that's not correct, that I pointed out. Those gulches are not mapped correctly.
Gary?
One thing I'd like to just clarify, because I could be wrong on this, but isn't it possible that the Maui Planning Commission map is still under appeal, and so therefore would be, I think, probably inappropriate to lock in on anything that isn't yet actually cleared out anyway?
What's on appeal is not the map. It's the number of affordable units and where those are going to go and those kinds of things. The map is not in question at all.
Okay, that's highly possible, because I'm not that close to that particular project.
Any further discussion? Are we ready for a vote? Vernon?
So I'm going to resend my motion only because, I'm not mild to this. I'm not used to this area. Daniel, others, they spend time on that property. So that's why I wanted to have this open discussion. Just a little just listening to Daniel for a little while, that's his area. So he know the gulches. So I'm going to resend my motion, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think you're done. Anything else in sub-area 4? Moving on to sub-area 5, McKenna. So we had some issues here. One of them is a request to revert the Keauhou to agriculture. And one of the reasons, and one of the things we were debating a lot was about something outside the urban growth boundaries that would solve both of those problems. Daniel?
I make a motion we amend Keauhou Ohunua'ula from residential to agriculture.
Second.
Second by Everett. Discussion? Any objections? Okay, and we have made that change. And then there were the issues of the other properties which are outside the urban growth boundary. Daniel.
Chair. So I wasn't at the meeting where this map was approved with the residential areas outside the growth boundary in the McKenna area, which the map that was recommended by the planning department was approved. However, when I asked the planning department who made the recommendations to include residential areas outside the growth boundary in the McKenna area, the yellow areas, they didn't know. They have no clue how that ended up in there. But it was on the recommended map, and that's the map that the CPAC approved at previous planning meeting. So the Hall family came before us, and they shared their feelings about what this cultural property should be, and in the end they decided to go with ag, which is fine because outside the growth boundaries, rural open space is what you want, and ag is fine. But the other properties that are outside the urban growth area, and the urban growth area is the furthest extent that you should have any urban growth. Nobody knows how that got designated yellow. And so I don't know. The planning department doesn't know. We approved that because we thought the planning department recommended it, but they didn't know who put it in there. So to me, that's an issue. So I'm going to make a motion to be consistent with the Maui Island Plan and to not designate any of the residential areas that for some reason somehow became yellow, nobody knows how, that they should not be designated residential since they're outside the urban growth boundary. And the purpose of having the urban growth boundary is to prevent sprawl. So I think it would be consistent with the Maui Island Plan if they not be designated.
So there are four properties, 4 parcels that are outside the urban growth boundary and the rural growth boundary. And one of them is a state property, and I have no idea why anyone would designate an unused, undeveloped state property as residential. It doesn't make any sense. That's the one at the bottom. Then there are 3 more. So there are 2 that are adjacent to the rural growth boundary. And I don't think it makes sense to name something as agricultural open space if there's a house on it, people have lived on it for 25 years. But what we can do is we can recommend changing the urban growth boundary or the rural growth boundary, and then the Maui Island Plan can be changed in that regard. So the two properties that are just south of the rural growth boundary, they could easily be. You could just expand the rural growth boundary, and they'd be included in that. And then the third one, that's the one that sticks up from the highway there. That would have to be a separate rural growth boundary, and that does happen. I mean, that is the case for the ones above there. So that is something that's done. So that's one way we could solve this problem.
One thing I thought I made a motion.
What was the motion?
The motion was to not designate any of these parcels outside the urban growth boundary.
We have to make a specific motion.
I just made the motion.
No, if you need a motion, what should they be?
Well, they can be ag.
Okay, motion is to make ag. Is there a second? Okay, so an alternative approach would be to. There was no second.
No second.
There was no second. Second by Cody. Okay. Okay.
That's my motion.
Okay. Discussion.
The halls came before us, right?
Yes.
They talked to us, but these we don't know who these property owners are, and what are their desires for their parcel to be designated as. I mean, we haven't had any. We don't even know why they're designated residential and who did it. So since we don't know why and who did it, and they haven't come before us, and we don't have any information, we should just not designate them. We don't have to designate them as residential. So if they're not designated, then I'm saying designate them ag.
Gary?
So would you consider a friendly amendment that anything outside of the urban boundary, which we're responsible for writing the plan for, just simply would not be designated as anything? And there would be a note in there that says that only those things within the urban boundary, as the South Maui CPAC is responsible for, is designated.
That's not possible.
Possible? Okay.
No.
Well, then never mind. It was a horrible idea. I retract it.
It's outside the urban growth boundary. Couldn't it be non-conforming? Why do we have to designate something outside the urban growth boundary? Anything.
Outside typically is agriculture, open space.
Then I guess it's ag, right?
So specifically, this is for 4 parcels, right?
Right, everything except, 1, 2, 3, 4. State land and the other 3. Above the state line, correct? It's 4 remaining parcels. Yep.
Discussion. Okay, ready for a vote? Those in favor, everyone?
Hey, Karen, see the 2 yellow on the bottom, any chance they might be in conservation, like state? You guys have anything on that? Just checking.
Let's look it up real quick. Second, pull that back. These are the state designations. So the brown, I believe, is rural. The green is conservation. State is also something you have to get checked, because as you'll notice, this parcel right here is supposed to be rural, but it is conservation in the state map.
That's an error on the state map. We've gotten confirmation from the state that that one is an error. It's, I think it's rural.
Yeah, and the rest of this, the white part, is all agriculture.
Okay.
So that this little state piece, according to that map, is in agriculture?
Yes.
Yeah.
Based on the layers, we just couldn't figure out why these were designated the way they are.
Ready to vote? There's a motion. Oh, the motion is that the four properties which are outside the urban growth boundary be agriculture. Those in favor, please raise your hand. And those against? Yeah, so there are some abstentions. Abstained is abstaining, raise your hand. And Vernon. Okay, so motion passes. Anything else in McKenna?
Mr. Chair, point of information, please. As we're getting down to the witching hour here, it seems apparent to me that we're never going to finish the rest of our activities in one more meeting on Wednesday. Last week, we ended up sticking around for another half an hour trying to make a decision. I think we should work on that now and decide what's the plan if we don't finish on Wednesday. Thank you.
The Wednesday meeting agenda does have a discussion about an extension on it. As the fourth agenda item, that would be the appropriate time to discuss that, because you can't discuss it unless it's on the agenda.
Mahalo.
Anything else in Sub-Area 5, McKenna? Daniel?
I wanted to ask about the Palawea Preserve, and I wasn't at that meeting, and I want to ask why it's designated special purpose district when open space does cover protection of historic and cultural properties. What makes it a special planning district? Why is it that designation? Shouldn't it be open space?
Special purpose district because it had some uses that were different than open space. I believe it has a caretaker's cottage is allowed on it, and there was some other development in order to make it a cultural preserve that would not necessarily go with open space. It is also the only place that the planning department during the discussion found to be so unique in their zoning that it didn't fit any of the other definitions easily. So that's why it was recommended for special purpose district.
Chair. Yeah, that still doesn't answer my question. There is a cottage there. There's nobody living in the cottage, to my knowledge. And what special things are going to be done that you couldn't fit into open space? I mean, shouldn't, so okay, this is OHA, right? OHA got the land from Dowling Company. It was part of a SMA thing, quid pro quo. On that, and so the 20 plus acres, right? The condition, and so OHA took title, and then they partnered with the Maui College Studies Department for the preservation plan, right? So I still don't know what makes this a special planning district. Maybe OHA should, if they're going to do, if the UHMC Hawaiian Studies is going to do something that doesn't fit into other forms or open space, we should know, instead of just, oh, it's a special planning district. I haven't heard anything that tells me that they're doing something unique.
That was just off the top of my head what I could remember. If you feel open space would protect it better, that is your right to make that recommendation.
Well, I wish we could hear from UH Hawaiian Studies Department to see what would make it outside open space. But for me, if you look at the open space definition, everything that I think that project is trying to do, which is preserve and protect cultural sites, falls under open space. So I'm gonna make a motion to amend the special purpose district for Palauea Culture Preserve to be made open space. Because I haven't heard anything that would suggest we need to do anything otherwise.
Second by Everett. Or second by Everett. Okay, discussion.
Daniel, I think, and it's been probably 20 years since the transfer occurred. I believe from memory, which my memory is not all that swift after 20 years, but I think there was some discussion about having a caretaker live on the site just to protect the archaeological features. I don't know if that's still their plan or not, and I don't know if that would be allowed under open space, but it was supposed to be a educational resource for the archaeological and cultural students at Maui. But I believe that might be why it's special district, just because of the caretaker.
Chair. Okay, so we don't know. We don't have Maui College Hawaiian Studies here telling us it's going to be used as a caretaker cottage. I don't know what their plans are.
Can I read it to you?
Read
The
it.
cultural preserve / park permitted uses within the cultural preserve park district, the following uses shall be permitted. Principal uses which shall be with interim and final preservation plans approved by the State Historic Preservation Division, the Island Burial Council, Islands of Maui and Lanai, and the Maui County Cultural Resources Commission. A. Cultural and historical facilities of an outdoor nature, educational and interpretive facilities, open areas, Native Hawaiian botanical gardens, natural and historical preservation areas, open agricultural uses, agricultural land conservation, which means the planting of soil-nourishing plants and trees, including Native Hawaiian plant species, natural drainage ways, and other uses which are similar in character and not detrimental to the welfare of the surrounding area. Other principal uses, caretaker facilities, public, quasi-public underground utility lines. I am summing this up. Uses accessory to other principal uses. Accessory uses such as office spaces, workshop facilities, carports, garages, maintenance and storage facilities, and unpaved driveways and parking areas.
And you're reading that from where? What are you reading?
From Code of Ordinances 19.91.030, Cultural Preserve Park, Project District K/8.
Okay, I withdraw my motion.
What year was that?
Thank you.
Just lots of questions tonight. It says 2000, Ordinance 2898.
Thanks.
Any other changes to Sub-Area 5, McKenna? Daniel?
I do have more, Chair. It is 8:36. Should I?
What are your proposed changes to McKenna?
Okay, can we pull up the McKenna map? Okay, let's go to the Malawaka Estates beach lots. Those three parcels that are designated hotel resort, right? There's the Malawaka Estate beach lots, and then next to it is the H2 residential subdivision, proposing 53 residential units to be built by the homeowners. And then you have the McKenna Resort property up there that is marketed as a residential community on their website. Residential members only community. They have beach cottages, luxury homes. Anyway, those are all designated hotel residential. Sorry, hotel resort slate resort hotel, but their uses are really residential. The beach lots in Malawaka, and their homes that have built there already, not all 13 lots, they're half-acre, three-quarter acre lots. H2 is going to be residential, and McKenna Resort is residential. So I think I'm going to make a motion, I'm going to make a motion to amend the land use designation from resort hotel to residential. Thank you.
For all three of those brown areas?
All three, yeah.
Is there a second? Second by Mike. Discussion? Everett?
I cannot speak to. I'm an owner of H2, the larger one on the bottom, so I can't discuss that at all. On Malawaka, the one that's to the left, right above the yellow, I think those under the CCNRs and under the SMA, I believe, those cannot be rented for short term. So I think Daniel's motion would probably, I believe it would probably be welcomed by those owners because it's an ongoing tax issue. Every couple of years, the county of Maui wants to tax it as hotel, but it can't be used as hotel. It can't be short-term rental. None of the owners want to rent it short-term. So I think what Daniel's suggesting would probably be welcomed by that set of owners. And I think on that lot, that property has 19 owners. On the one on the top, that is hotel zoned. It's being used as some of the owners are renting it out short term, I believe. So that right now it's being used, I think, as short term rentals. So that would probably present a problem for those folks. Although all of them aren't interested in renting their homes. And I can't discuss, by law, I can't discuss the one on the bottom right.
So you're suggesting that the leftmost one left bottom one would be okay, and you don't know about the top one, or you think they might not, probably not, and you can't speak to the third one.
The top one is, I mean, it's zoned hotel, so it's short-term rental is allowed, and it's taxed as hotel, and it's been designed in terms of infrastructure to service that population.
Okay. For discussion. Ready to vote? Brian?
Understanding you can't speak to the bottom right, but does anybody else know how it's zoned, and will it have short-term rental?
It is zoned HM hotel.
Karen, I believe in some properties have information in unilateral agreements or documents of that nature. Some properties.
It is zoned hotel.
Yeah, all three of them are zoned hotel.
Right. I guess so zoning is hotel, but do we know if their CCNRs allow short-term rental? Well, it is, because when we did McKenna Surf, we made them a resort because we said the rationale was because they had short-term rental.
They're allowed to have short-term rentals.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to understand, is if that parcel.
But not based on CCNRs, but based on zoning. It's the zoning that allows them to have that. Zoning or the grandfathering. Yeah.
Just want to know if they can or can't.
They can.
Okay, so they can.
Hmm. Okay, ready for a vote? Those in favor, please raise your hand. And those against?
Everett recuses himself.
Everett's recused.
He's recused.
Abstention. I can't abstain. What's the other?
Recuse.
Recuse. Thank you.
The yeses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses, 1 no, 1 recuse. Wait, is that right? Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So were there some abstentions?
Lehua and Vernon were abstaining.
So does that make 7?
Yep.
That makes 7? Okay, so that passes. Anything else in McKenna? Sub-area 5? Anything in sub-area 6, Ahihi-Kinaua? Okay, so we are done with item B, the first item on the agenda. So if we recess this meeting so we can finish it next time, does that mean we can't discuss the extension?
It's not on the agenda.
Okay. Okay. Then closing this meeting then at 8:45 p.m.
Adjourning the meeting?
Adjourning, not recessing.